Enforcement Administration says a week-long cartel crackdown led to nearly 200 arrests just in New England. The DEA says they were all members of the Sinaloa cartel, the largest drug cartel in the world.
At 6:41 a.m., inside a sealed federal briefing room with no windows and no phones allowed, a senior operations official stepped forward and placed both hands on the podium. The room was silent. No movement, no side conversations. Just the low hum of air circulation and the faint glow of classified monitors lining the walls. The official looked up and spoke slowly. "What we are about to enter is not a sheriff's department. It is a fortified cartel command center operating under the protection of a badge." That sentence marked the moment when a routine narcotics investigation officially transformed into the most explosive internal law enforcement takedown ever attempted on U.S. soil. By the time the sun set that evening, 1,240 people would be under arrest. By the time the final inventory was logged, 6.3 tons of fentanyl would be seized. And by the time the public learned what happened, a quiet county in Oregon would be permanently associated with one of the deepest betrayals of public trust in modern American history. This was not a cartel hiding in back alleys. This was not an operation surviving on bribes and fear alone. This was a cartel that had rewritten the system from the inside. And what federal agents were about to uncover would force a brutal question not about crime, but about power. At exactly 4:32 a.m., long before sunrise, thick fog rolled across the rural highways of western Oregon. Pine trees stood motionless. The town was dark. Porch lights glowed faintly. A few trucks passed on distant roads, unaware that the county was already surrounded. Unmarked vehicles moved into position without sirens. Headlights stayed off. Engines idled low. Federal strike teams advanced in silence toward a sprawling complex officially listed as the county sheriff's headquarters. On paper, it was unremarkable. Brick buildings, training fields, storage units, administrative offices. In reality, it was something else entirely. FBI tactical units took the perimeter first. ICE and DEA teams moved in staggered formations towards secondary structures, facilities labeled as evidence, storage, vehicle maintenance, and emergency response coordination. At the same moment, federal cyber units cut external communications. Power grids feeding the compound went dark. Backup generators kicked in something a normal sheriff's office would never need. That was the first confirmation. This place was built for siege. On command, flashbangs detonated through reinforced doors. The silence shattered instantly. Steel frames buckled inward. Federal agents flooded hallways lined with ballistic paneling. Walls were thicker than code allowed. Corners reinforced. Camera systems tracked movement with military precision. Deputies reacted in chaos. Some ran blindly. Some froze in disbelief. Some reached for weapons, only to realize every angle was already covered. Surveillance feeds went black as cyber teams killed the network in seconds. Then, agents found the elevators. Hidden behind secured walls were industrial-grade lifts, descending into levels never approved, never inspected, never reported. Below ground, the truth revealed itself in stages. Room after room stacked with shrink-wrapped fentanyl bricks. Methamphetamine sealed in pharmaceutical containers marked as processed evidence. Cash vaults containing millions in bundled currency, still warm from counting machines left running. Ledger books detailing shipments that were never seized, only reintroduced. This wasn't storage. It was logistics. And then came the tunnels. Long, reinforced corridors extended far beyond the compound's footprint, branching toward storm drains, forest service roads, and abandoned infrastructure. Lighting was permanent. Ventilation was engineered. Movement was constant. These were not escape routes. They were arteries. At the same time, synchronized raids detonated across the county. A trucking company contracted to transport inmates, actually a long-haul narcotics corridor. Rural warehouses registered as emergency supply depots, housing chemical precursors. A nonprofit claiming to support veterans funneling cartel money through fabricated grants. Private properties tied to deputies and administrators functioning as transit houses. Suspects fled with duffel bags heavy with narcotics and cash. Others attempted to destroy servers, wipe drives, or flood storage rooms. They were stopped mid-action. By sunrise, Sizer reports flooded command channels. Fentanyl measured by the ton. Methamphetamine in industrial volumes. Thousands of counterfeit pills pressed to mimic legal prescriptions. Enough narcotics to devastate entire regions. But the most dangerous discovery wasn't chemical. It was digital, at 9:18 a.m. Inside a sealed federal cyber forensics lab miles away, analysts began loading seized drives into air-gapped systems. Encryption protocols activated immediately, security layers stacked on top of each other. It wasn't amateur work, but it wasn't invincible. As layers fell, a massive network diagram slowly materialized across the primary screen. Analysts went silent. At the top was a codename, Operation Evergreen Shield. Beneath it, a web so vast it took hours to fully render. Shell companies tied directly to county contracts. Ghost corporations registered offshore. Fake charities posing as disaster relief organizations. Restaurant chains laundering revenue nightly. Logistics firms controlling trucking routes across multiple states. Money flowed constantly, disguised as payroll, pensions, grants, maintenance fees, and equipment upgrades. At the center of the network sat a single encrypted authorization key. It belonged to the county sheriff, publicly praised as a defender of law and order. Privately operating as a regional commander for a cartel, inspired by the most violent trafficking organizations in the world. This was not corruption. This was governance. Internal records showed patrol schedules deliberately altered to create guaranteed convoy windows. Border alerts suppressed. Federal tips buried. Warrants delayed. Judges paid to stall proceedings. Officials rewarded for silence. The county wasn't compromised. It had been converted. A protected inland hub, a secure artery feeding narcotics into the heart of the country. And the files revealed something worse. This was only phase 1. At 5 to 11 a.m. the following morning, as dawn broke over the Pacific Northwest, a federal command center came alive. A massive digital map filled the main wall. Red markers pulsed across highways, cities, forests, and border corridors. The briefing was short, clinical, final. This phase wasn't about arrests. It was about eradication. More than 2,000 federal agents mobilized. SWAT teams staged in waves. Armored vehicles rolled into position. Helicopters thundered overhead. Naval assets positioned offshore as a warning. Military support units coordinated airspace and logistics. Raids ignited simultaneously. Desert superlabs tied to the same financial network were breached. Border tunnels collapsed under controlled detonations. Cartel mansions fell before sunrise. Transit houses were cleared room by room. Smuggling convoys were intercepted mid-route. Drivers surrendered when they realized the protection was gone. Weapons caches poured out of walls and floors. Assault rifles. Explosives. Military-grade communications equipment. Servers designed to operate for decades without detection. By midday, cartel lieutenants, financial managers, and corrupt officials were being processed across multiple states. Some broke down. Some stared forward in silence. All of them understood the same truth. The shield was gone. In 6 hours, the criminal underworld took more damage than it had in the previous 6 years combined. But the investigation didn't stop. As analysts combed through seized servers, transaction logs, and internal communications, a deeper betrayal emerged, one that cut through the core of law enforcement itself. The infiltration was vast. Deputies, border agents, court clerks, judges, legislators. Payment schedules aligned perfectly with patrol gaps. Emails revealed leaked raid plans. Maintenance windows opened corridors. Entire shifts reassigned to clear highways. Honest officers sat in interview rooms, hands shaking, realizing the institution they trusted had been weaponized against them. Senior commanders were arrested, men who once trained recruits, now accused of selling them out. A parallel enforcement system had existed in plain sight. Rebuilding would take years, and the threat stretched far beyond Oregon. Routes connected across states and overseas. Agricultural corridors used as cover. Green energy grants rerouted into shell projects. Ports flagged as low risk quietly became distribution hubs. The final files revealed the cartel's endgame. Permanence, not influence control. A semi-autonomous zone where law enforcement, logistics, and governance merged into a shadow authority. A system designed to survive elections, investigations, and outrage. And that realization delivered the final truth. The system wasn't infiltrated. It was redesigned. Power doesn't always arrive with violence. Sometimes, it arrives with paperwork, with ambition, with silence. The cost isn't measured in seizures. It's measured in lives. And that cost never disappears.